What's up, Rad Dads, and welcome back to another episode of the Rad Dads podcast, hosted by none other than the two raddest dads on the East Coast. Well, I am actually doing it solo tonight. Tonight we have a very special guest on. He's not only a rad dad, but also an American poet, novelist, and educator. Like many rad dads, his life changed with the birth of his child. Please welcome Joseph Fasano, the author and creator of The Living Poem. Joseph, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
Great to have you on. Um, you have quite the extensive background, which I read online. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm sort of many things, but I am a writer, and most recently I've been doing this project for my son. It's very funny because it was about 2 or 3 weeks before he was born. I started. I'm not tremendously big on social media, but I do dabble every now and then. And I started posting these lines of poetry, which is not normally the medium by which I share my work. And honestly, when I started, it was very organic, and I didn't even really know that I was talking to my boy. And I looked up, a couple of days into the project, and I said, I'm writing this thing for him. And it just has been a really wonderful way. And he was born a couple of weeks later. He came early. He surprised us a little bit. Uh, it's been a really wonderful way to share my thoughts, to share some images, to speak to him, to speak to my idea of him, and to just sort of let it grow and let it be. And of course, it's a document that I hope to leave for him, something he'll be able to read in the future. But for the time being, it helps me sort of get my thoughts and feelings straight and out there. And it's just been a really rewarding project, mostly because it's been wonderful to hear from other people, fathers, mothers, people that it resonates with for all different reasons. So it's been a lot of fun, very
that
rewarding.
is that is amazing. I can tell you from experience, when your son is old enough, he will absolutely 100% appreciate
Mm,
the words that you've written for him.
mm,
I too, when my kids were born, created email addresses for. I have three girls, so I created email addresses from when they were born, and it wasn't every night, maybe once a week. I just shoot off an email to their inbox.
oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so when they come of age, and lately they've been going into their inboxes and checking out some of the messages sent. But yes, he will absolutely 100% appreciate those words.
That's really amazing. So they have their little letters from dad waiting there.
Yes. Yep.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that.
So family photos I like to share with them, and that's something that they'll have, and it's theirs.
I think in a way it's everybody goes through that journey, right, in life where you slowly humanize your parents and you slowly realize, hey, these are people, they did the best they could. This or that might not have been perfect. And something about these documents, whether it's a longer kind of letter or email that you're leaving or these lines of poetry, I hope that yeah, that the kids as they grow up, they can look and say, hey, this was the state of mind, my father was in at this moment, as he was trying to figure out, what to do and how to give me a bath, all those things. So I'm very kind of honest and open about the imperfections of it, which is part and parcel of doing this project on something like Twitter, which of course I'm as ambivalent about that platform as everybody, is that you can delete, but you can't really make any corrections. and
Right.
and there's something about parenting, of course, that's like that. I always say, you could, if you do something that you don't like on Tuesday, you can do something different on Wednesday, but you can't take Tuesday back. So it's very interesting the way I'm just kind of letting it all hang out there. It's a new thing to me, but I think it's part and parcel of being a father.
Raw and uncut, because
Yeah,
everything we do, it's trials and tribulations.
that's right.
Um, Something we talk about on the podcast is we go through our journey of being fathers. There's no book for us. There's no
Hmm.
manual for us. It's what we saw when we were being raised worked. That our parents, how they raised us, and you try to incorporate that in our daily lives or your daily lives, raising your son. So what works for a colleague, them raising their kids, may not necessarily work for you or for me. So
Absolutely. And the generational stuff too, as you mentioned, is so interesting, right? Every generation is so different. I think about my son. I think about the ideas that, for example, I inherited of masculinity, and that word is such a word that gets dragged through the mud, nowadays. And of course, there are things we need to do to always be thinking about what it is to be a man, but there's so much in that needs to be celebrated, and so that's something that I think about a lot. Um, you know what it is to what things do you want to pass on, what things do
right,
you want to change as the generations go on, and how can you learn, really. It's what it's about.
right. So how has becoming a father changed your life? And what I know you're, I think you said 8 weeks in,
Yeah, eight
and
weeks
and what has it taught you besides lack of sleep?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny because there was one line of that poem that I'm writing for him, and I was up late, and it was Daddy's shift, and I was with the boy, and he was not going down. And it occurred to me to write the line, "I don't mind if you leave me sleepless. I've been asleep my whole life." It's the feeling that um, it's getting me out of my own mind. And I'm sure we all know that feeling of getting really caught up in our own mental processes. It's something I struggle with a lot. Sometimes it's a good thing to be in my mind when I'm creating my work, and other times it's just a burden. But when you have a child, you are living for that other person. It's very much not about you anymore. It's about how do I get food in my system just so that I can be there for him or for her. And so that has been really a salvation, I have to say. That feeling of really having to be there for somebody else. People have kids at different stages in life. I'm going to be 40 in a few weeks, and I very much feel this is something I've wanted for a while.
Right.
So even the troubles and the sleeplessness and everything, it still it just feels like a blessing to me. It's get me out of my head. What can I do to try to listen to this little human being, and that has been really, really wonderful, I have to say.
It is an amazing feeling. Something that I sometimes, my wife and I, we talk about that I do miss those little oohs and ahs.
Hmm.
When they were peanuts. They're tiny little peanuts.
Yeah.
So that is missed.
Hmm.
So what challenges? I know, fresh. What challenges have you faced so far?
Yeah, I mean, let me think about challenges. I mean, other than the little things, it's you know what occurs to me to say, it's when my son was born, he's totally fine now, but he had a little possible problem with his kidney, and you go to the specialist, and that night I got a call from the doctor at 7:30. Everything was fine, but I tell you, I have never felt that kind of fear before. When you get that call from a doctor after hours. You've been afraid for your own life before. I've been in motorcycle accidents, this, that, and the other. Never a fear like there might be something wrong with my child. And so it's a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity for a kind of spiritual growth, right? How much can you control? How much do you really have to let go? So that's something that I think about. And my wife and I talk about that. I'm somebody who, as an artist, I have this sort of what I think of sometimes when I'm well, I have this balance between letting things be and then also trying to, get my hands on something, and whether it's wrestling a poem into form or wrestling my life into form. But with the child, it's this wonderful kind of interesting and yes, challenging dance of, what do I have control over? What do I let go? And I'm sure, of course, he's only 8 weeks, as they get older and the personalities come out, you really have to navigate that in different ways. So that's definitely what I would say first thing that comes to my mind in terms of a challenge. I hope a rewarding one, but definitely a challenge.
And it's a learning one as well.
Hmm. You learn a lot about yourself, that's for sure.
Yes, they do test the patience.
I'm, I'm sure. Yes, there's a whole journey ahead.
If you can avoid Legos, avoid the Legos, because when you step on those Lego pieces, boy, the stars come out.
Oh Lord.
So one of the challenges we face as dads is the work life balance.
Right.
how have you been able to effectively balance your time with work and your family?
The first thing is on a very practical level. So I'm a professor, and my university, my primary university, I teach at a few different places, but my primary university where I have my professorship, they gave me paternity leave for the whole semester. It was astonishing and really, really wonderful. So
Wow.
I've been able to be there and to really, and that gets into a whole other conversation because I talk about this with my friends. Some of them are fathers, some of them are not, and really what it is as a society to value and to invest in the next generation, right? To not just repeat the same problems that we have again and again. And we have certain values as Americans, the work ethic, right? The sort of you're only seen in this country, as doing your job if you're tired, if you're bewildered, if you're sort of
Right.
those are all seen as virtues. But what can we do to really, really invest in the next generation? These are big questions, and these are big, can be tackled from many different angles. That said, my work as a writer is always difficult to balance with any of my interpersonal relationships. My wife is a hero. She really understands. She's got an artist soul too. What it is for me to, I got to go work on a book, or I'm working long hours, on something, and that's a very immersive, solitary experience. So I have to say, since my son has been born, I've been working on this project that I'm able, this living poem that I post on Twitter that I've been able to write in certain installments. There's a practical reason for that too. I write novels as well. And before my son was born, that involves waking up in the morning. You have put in a 12, 13, 14-hour day on the book. And I have certainly have not been able to do that since my son. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that all of that, how I keep all those plates spinning. My writing, my teaching, my being a good husband and partner, my being a good father. So you're definitely talking to somebody who's making step one, step two, step three on that phase of my life. So so we'll see. But it's something that I think, let's put it this way, it's giving form to my life in a way that I want this challenge right now. I
That's
feel like
great.
I've gone as far as I can, whether it's in my art or in my life, just sort of wrestling with myself. So I want to, sing those deeper songs now that involve compromising for other people and really being there and having to be you know, a leader and a listener.
So to touch on something you mentioned before, you mentioned that the university that you're at, they actually gave you paternity leave, and that's not something that we are accustomed to.
Yeah, not at all.
So I'm 42 years old, and I the the contractor I used to work for, my boss was excellent guy, very old school. We started having kids at 29.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked my boss for 2 weeks off when my wife was due. I
Mm-hmm.
said, hey, I like to be there the day before, and then 2 weeks after that I'll be back. And he had this look on his face. I said, is everything okay? He goes, when my daughter was born, I was out here on this roadway. I got the call. I went to the hospital. I met my wife. My child was born, and I came right back to this office.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I mean, right? It's like
Crazy.
there's a part of me, this is very complicated and layered, right? Because there's a part of me that has, we're roughly the same age. I grew up in a generation where it's like, part of me wants to applaud that because I've inherited the idea that that's a virtue, that
Right.
that's a man who goes back to work. Another part of me says we really need to take stock of what we consider virtues and why we consider them virtues. Sometimes what we do, and I'm not certainly not saying this is what happened with your boss. I don't know the man at all. But sometimes we take our fears and we alchemize them into what we consider to be virtues. Maybe it's hard to be there for your kid in the first week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And we want to say, well, I'm not going to say it was hard for me to be there. So I'm going to say I went to work. I went to, again,
That's true.
there are other layers too, which is,
Right.
if you have a job, you got to put money on the table. I mean, I'm fortunate that, the 13 years that I put in at my university, that I was able to get this time. But so anyway, interesting, right? It's very interesting to think about those things, and especially as men, and men of our age, I would say
Right.
that what have we inherited as certain ideas? And I look at my son's eyes, and I think, I want to learn which parts are good and which parts are, really need to be picked apart and not passed along. But my father did a very great job with me. I mean, he's a great guy. As a matter of fact, my little boy just, as I said, just spent 2 days visiting with my mother and my father. He hadn't been up there into the Hudson Valley where I'm from, so he had a great time with them. My parents are really great. They have 8 now. They have 8 grandchildren now.
Wow.
They have a full house when vacations come around.
Especially the holidays, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So, is there a special meaning to your son's name? Is there a reason why you chose Leonardo?
I love the sound of that name, and there was a book that I was writing, and my wife and I, last summer, we were on the beach. It was wonderful. We were just sort of sitting and thinking about names, and we had a name picked out for a little girl, and actually she picked it out, and it's beautiful. And of course, I'm not allowed to tell it. One day, perhaps that'll come true. And I said, well, what about a boy? And she said the name, and it was the same name that I was, sort of inserting into a certain character in one of my novels. So it was just one of these magical moments. And I hadn't thought about this consciously, but as the weeks have gone by, I think also about Leonardo da Vinci. I think about the idea of someone who embraces both the artistic world and the sort of world of rational scientific thought. And in my life, and my wife is the same way, we think a lot about psychological integration and what it is to not buy into a certain culture of commodification where we internalize the idea that you have to be this one thing or that one thing,
Right.
or I'm left brained, I'm right brained. All of these can be wonderful descriptive mechanisms to think about what kind of person you are, but they could also become very self fulfilling and limiting mechanisms in education and otherwise. So somehow that name for me embodies the kind of permission to be it all, be whatever you want to be. So that's part of it. That's part of it. Names are always mysteries, but I would say that's the conscious part of it.
Very nice. So I like it. Very interesting. So, have you thought of any family traditions that you'd like to continue or start with your son?
That's a great question. It's a funny one. It's a small one. It's a little thing. But do you know the old Bing Crosby movie White Christmas? Do you know that film?
Yes.
So every Thanksgiving, after my family and I have dinner together, we kick off the Christmas holiday season by watching that film. And there's something hokey about it, and there's something, but it's a small, I don't know why that's the first thing that popped into my mind, but there must be some meaning if it did. And that's something I think about. My family gathered around to watch that movie, and I have a little vision of my boy being involved in that too. So that'd be a nice little thing to pass on. There are bigger things and more meaningful things, but sometimes it's the little
No, it definitely is the little things. Absolutely, definitely is the little things. So now we're going to get into our Rad Dad's rapid fire round.
Okay, all right.
So, favorite book?
Oh my goodness, my favorite book. Well, I'm a really, really big Cormac McCarthy fan, so I'm going to say at the moment, I'll say All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy.
All right. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Well, my Italian family will condemn me for not saying that, but my comfort food ever since I was a boy is just crappy, if I can say that, takeout Chinese, American Chinese food. It's a feel good thing for me. My wife knows if I'm having a bad day. Don't even make dinner. You won't just, that's it.
You're definitely going to be condemned by the family.
Okay.
Because I too am from Italian descent.
I picked
Uh,
that up.
is it the first name or the last name?
Both.
Favorite sports team?
I'm not a huge sports guy anymore, but I grew up. It was funny because I grew up liking the New York Jets, and I was a family, and I had to be different. My family were Giants fans, and I still tell you a very quick short story. I remember going to, oh, we must have been kids, went to J.C. Penney or Macy's or something, and my father was buying us all winter coats, and he said, okay, took us to the sports coat section. Here are these blue coats, and they're of course Giants coats. I didn't know any difference. I needed to be different, so I said I want the green one. And my father, this is the kind of guy my father is. He never said, no, you have to do this, you have to do that. And that extended all the way to my adult life. He never said, oh, you want to study this in college or whatever. So he bought me the green coat, and I was condemned. Maybe he knew what he was doing. I was condemned to be a Jets fan until I let that go.
Oh, very funny. So, favorite dad moment?
I know everybody says it, but that birth is unbelievable.
Yes.
He came into the world, and we were in a beautiful room. It was right as the sun was setting, and just there's nothing like it, and that's probably why everybody says that. There's just absolutely nothing like that moment when he takes his first breath and makes his first cry, and it's wonderful.
Yes, I'm going to have to agree. I had 3 of those moments.
I bet they were all different in their own ways.
Yes. Actually, the last one, she was a surprise. She came early,
Mm-hmm.
so she had her challenges, but healthier than an ox right now.
Great, fantastic.
So I know that you haven't been on a family vacation yet because Leonardo's is new. But anything that you've done in the past or would like to continue?
Yeah, it's so we go out. His mother's family is out in Sag Harbor, and we go out there and visit a lot. And we took him very briefly to the beach. I took him to where I asked his mother to marry me.
Very nice.
I took him out there, and of course, he's a winter baby, so he's what is this sunlight? He wasn't having it for too long, but we got some photographs, and we said, "All right, buddy, we'll take you back this summer. You'll be a little bit older, and you'll have a hat on."
All right, here we go. Best dad joke.
Okay, so it's very funny because my younger brother, one of my younger brothers, I have 3 brothers, bought me a book of horrible dad jokes. Now I'm yet to crack it open. Okay, so I'm gonna put a to be continued on this one, but
Absolutely, I will accept it.
I have the merchandise. I'm been prepared for all of the hokiness of dadhood.
So you got to have the New Balance shoes with the high white socks, right, and the
I
shorts.
have, I have my wife looked at me. This was before even the baby was born. It was one of these mornings, and I was heading out to work, and I looked down and I had gray New Balance sneakers on, slacks, and she said, "Oh boy, and I'm, I like motorcycles. I had an old Chevy when I was growing, and now she looked at me the other day, and I'm driving this new, this Mazda. And she said, "You're a dad now." And I said, "Look, I don't care what I look like, as long as he's safe."
That's it. That's all that matters.
Don't care.
Safe, healthy. That's it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's all about the kids.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it should be.
Yes, absolutely. So, final question, which we ask all dads. So, if you can impart a word of wisdom to all other fathers, what would it be?
Communicate. That's in one word. I would say, really create a house in which there are no necessary silences, or the silences are not full of any fear. That really, I will say, I want to create a house and a world in which my son doesn't feel that he has to be afraid of any part of himself. And that's something that I'm going to really work toward and be mindful about every day. And I can't say it's wisdom yet because I'm working on how to do it, but that's something that I really value and that I really want to strive.
No, that's very important, super important. That communication, that open dialogue, the transparency, the trust, that
Mm-hmm.
is that is paramount because you want to know if there's something that is irking your child.
Right.
You
I
know,
want him to feel safe to,
right?
even now he's a baby, he doesn't understand, but when he'll cry, and I'll jokingly say to him, "Get it out, good communicating, say whatever you want to say, every feeling is okay," because this that's really what it is. You know, they have whole worlds in them. And, you know, when a child feels it's okay to have privacy and secrets, even and all that stuff, but when they feel they can't speak it or share it, that really doesn't go well. So that's really the primary thing I think that I want to focus on.
Excellent. Well, Joseph, I want to say thank you very much for coming on. It was a pleasure meeting you. I hope we can do this again sometime in the future to see where you're at with the living poem. Um, I was doing a little reading before. Just amazing, amazing.
Thank you so much, Sal. This has really been a great chat, and it's wonderful to talk to somebody who's, you know, got the same mysteries that you're navigating to as a father. So yeah, I'm sure we'll reconnect in the future at some point, and I'll have stories to tell.
So one last thing. Where can our listeners find you? I know your books and poems, poetry.
So my website, which is just josephfasano.net, has some links to my books and things like that. And on Twitter, I'm tweeting out the new poem at stars underscore poem. But my main account, which is just Joseph underscore Fasano underscore, it's all there, and everything can be linked to. And I'm on Instagram and stuff like that too. But really, my website, josephfasano.net, is a great place to find things and links to books and poems and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's out there to be found.
Thank you very much.